Everybody, welcome to Leon's Chainsaw Parts and Repairs. Hope everybody had a good week. It is Friday, and the hell is it, the 21st of July. So, it's been a hot minute since I put a video up. It's been a busy July. I think I was doing the math in my head, and I believe I've spent more nights in my camp trailer in July than I've spent here at home. So. And that's not a bad thing. That's how I like to spend the summer, to be perfectly honest. Apologize for the fan in the background. It's warm. It's Southern Oregon. It's middle to end, well, second half of July, we'll put it that way. So it's good and hot. We've got a fire going, and I don't mean a campfire. I mean forest fire up by Agnes. If you're not in the Pacific Northwest, you probably haven't heard of it. It's relatively small by recent standards. It's still only about 15,000 acres, and they appear to be getting the upper hand on it quicker than not. The various updates show that it's they're getting lines built where they can actually hold them, so they're not going to call it contained until it burns up to those lines and doesn't cross and actually recedes. You know, when they can do their flyovers and infrared shows that it's starting to cool down, then they'll start narking containment on those. I'm not a firefighter. I've just spent way too many years in the last, well, pretty much every year the last decade tracking these stupid things as they pop up. This one appears to be human caused. It originated very near a campground on the Rogue. Now that's the Wild and Scenic Rogue River. Again, if you're not from the Pacific Northwest, you'd have no reason to know this, but it is just exactly what it says, wild and scenic. There's not many roads in there. A lot of people will camp just above the river line at various campgrounds because they boat, you know, raft trips, things like that. There's ways in, but because it's wild and scenic, there's not as many roads as you might be used to. Anyway, there's some smoke in the air, so it didn't cool off below 60 last night, so it's about 80 right now, hence the fan going. Anyway, camping's been good. 4th of July weekend, we took a good long weekend, 4 nights up on Canton Creek. It's up off of the North Umpqua. Beautiful creek. This is becoming kind of a yearly tradition. On the 4th, we'll go up there, get together with some of my wife's family, her siblings and significant others, and spend 4 days swimming in this creek. I call it a creek because that's its official name, but there's pools that are a good 12 feet deep in spots. It's kind of an old lava flow, so it warms up much quicker than, I mean, the North Umpqua never does warm up. It's shrivel your balls cold in the dead of August, and that is no joke. Don't ask how I know that. But this creek, which is a tributary of the North Umpqua, it warms up, and at 10:30 in the morning, I'm not super tolerant of cold water, but I can get into it and go numb quickly enough that it's actually enjoyable. So we were up there, and then we just got back this past Tuesday from Walton Lake, which is out in the middle of Central Oregon, east of Prineville. Again, if you're really that interested, you can find it. It's more popular than I want it to be. It's where my dad and I used to go fishing. It was a great fly fishing lake. Last few times I've been there, the fishing has sucked ass, to be really blunt. I think too many people are using it, and I don't think there's enough people or enough fish being stocked into it. It's landlocked. It's a man-made lake, about 22 acres, I think. So very small, no motors allowed, just, you know, row around. But it's beautiful. You're at 5,000 feet up in the Ochiko National Forest. For comparison, I would compare the Ochiko Forest to the mid-Sierras, kind of east of, say, Yosemite. Ponderosa pine is predominant, but there's some western larch and some Doug fir up there. It's high desert. You're just right on that edge. So very similar to the Sierras I was talking about. Just beautiful. A week up there, after explaining to my youngest, Katie, you've seen her on the channel, I explained to her one time what a bear footprint looks like, and I mean Bear, not Bare, although of course there's a relation if you've ever looked at them. So we were out hiking one morning, and she stops behind me about 6 paces, and I started to stop, and she said, why would somebody be walking barefoot out here? And I kind of explained to her exactly what to look for, and I walked back, and sure as shit, she had spotted a bear track, and it was every bit of, tip of finger to tip of thumb, which is that's around 7.5 inches or so on my hand. Good sized bear. So the signs on the outhouses that said, hey, bears have been sighted in the area, they weren't lying. So that was pretty cool. But that hike was really fun with her, because she was picking out elk and deer, and there's wild horses up there, and there's leased cattle grazing that the Forest Service does. So all kinds of good stuff. It's an area that was mined extensively for cinnabar, aka mercury. Cinnabar is the ore that you would find mercury in, so there was a lot of those mines up there, and it's amazing. After, let's say, for good round numbers, 100 years, since most of those areas have been mined, some of them 150 years, to still be hiking along in the middle of effing nowhere, and you find the pit, and you see the tailing pile, and you can just kind of start picturing in your mind what was going on at that time. But it's remote now, so back before automobiles, when somebody was packing all their crap on a horse or a mule, whew, those were some industrious people. I don't think anybody today really realizes just how easy we've got it. Fire up a car, and it drives us to the store to get what we need in a hot second. You got to drive your mule 50 miles to get whatever you ran out of. You'll kind of learn to do without, I think. So anyway, it was a hell of a lot of fun. Got to run the truck through its paces in hot weather, and I'll tell you what, I'm not going to get into the piss and match right now of the Ford, the Chevy, the Ram. Everybody has their favorite. You guys know I'm a Chevy guy. GM got it right on that little 3-liter diesel. I know there's been some problems, especially on that, what the hell is it? It's the, there's some sort of a reluctor ring, I think, that some of them got bent, so there would be a nose start where you'd crank. And anyway, I'm not going to get into it, it doesn't matter. My truck's never done that. It was built before COVID. That's why I was really comfortable buying it used, and boy did it not disappoint. That trailer is around 6,500 pounds on any given day, with a full load of fresh water and all the food that we need. My generator and an ice chest packed on the cargo rack on the back of it. Every bit of 6,500 pounds all day long. In the truck was, of course, loaded. I had the 4, boats, inflatable boats, one for each of us. I had firewood. I had an extra 45-gallon water tank because we were, going to be out for a while. And So the truck was loaded. I mean, loaded. That weight, rolling weight, would have been roughly 13,500 pounds. Close enough. I did not have a convenient scale to hit along the way. 230 miles roughly from here to Prineville, if I remember correctly. It's close to that. Anyway, long story short, hot day. You know, we got out of here at 9:30. By the time we were climbing the Cascade Summit at 5,700 feet, that particular pass by Diamond Lake, it was already above 80 degrees. So I had the air conditioning blasting, never overheated. They've got some sort of a funky coolant management system in there to keep that engine up at the temp it wants to run, and the engineers designed it to run with a light load or no load. It wants to run right around 215 to 220 for maximum efficiency. That's where it maintains itself. Oil temp, anywhere from 230 to 235, 240. Normal running. That's where they want to run it for fuel efficiency. They get that variable displacement oil pump. So with no load, the gauge is reading roughly 30 psi at cruising speed. A little lower than I care to see, but I'm not an engineer. I didn't design it. So we made that trip, no problem at all. I had read that when you're towing under a heavy load, that it's smart enough to manage the cooling system to increase capacity through these valves that it's got in the coolant passage, and it did. Pulling those hills, it actually runs cooler than it does on the flats. Sure, someday that shit'll break. That'll suck, but for now it works really great. We pulled into Prineville, fueled up before heading up the final 30 miles to the campground, and I nearly crapped a pickle, technical term, when I did the fuel economy calculation, and I got 13 to the gallon going up there. So you leave Medford, by the time you get to Shady Cove, you're climbing from Shady Cove all the way to Diamond Lake. You go from roughly 2,000 to 5,700 feet. So it's a slow climb in places, and then the final last 1,000 feet or so is just, it's lug it down and get up and go. So, unbelievable. And, you know, I used most of that tank of fuel dinking around up there. We did a lot of off-road type stuff, dirt road, mule trail in some cases. We went up to a fire lookout that's at 7,000 feet. I'm sure I'm mispronouncing it, but it's a native name, Mount Pisgah, Pizgah. Beats the hell out of me. I know it had some very strong significance to the native people that were over in that area. What have you? If I'm smart, I'm going to add some pictures in here as I'm talking about some of this stuff. So we burned a tank of fuel just running at low speed, dinking around on those trails. We made one trip to the painted hills. Talk about strange to be able to see just striations of color in these mounds because of rainforest turning to less rainforest, turning to regular forest, turning to desert. That's what the whole coloration is. That's part of the John Day Fossil Beds National Monument. Really, really awesome. So then coming back, you've got a little more downhill because you come out of Walton Lake, you come into, Prineville and then Redmond and Bend, and you do a little climb, you do a little down, whatever. You get up to Diamond Lake, and then from Diamond Lake to Medford, it's basically downhill. So I average 14 to the gallon. I'm going to say it was 1,000 pounds lighter because I had run the water tank down and we'd used up a bunch of food, but still, man, I love that truck. That is one amazing vehicle. If I was towing heavy every day, would it be right? No. But when I take, say, 6, 7, 8 camping trips a year, and the rest of the time I'm hauling a load of firewood or just hauling my butt to and from work, whew, yeah, it's perfect. So we got a little break in camping trips. I've got some work to do on some saws. Apparently some of the folks that I corresponded with in the spring didn't watch the video where I said, hey, if I said get a saw to me, get in the mail now, because I've still had a few more trickle in, much to my chagrin, but whatever. I'll get them taken care of. What is it, an XL12 there? Might be 2 XL12s. I've got a set of XL12s that have been airing out since before I went camping. I get those sent out. Still got some bug kill to do up on the hill. I'm hoping fire season is advancing rapidly. We're at to the best of my knowledge, we can still use a gas chainsaw until 11 a.m. at this point. I need to, verify that. I'd love to get up there one more time for knocking down bug kill and be able to use a gas saw as opposed to the battery one, because some of those trees are big enough that 18-inch bar on the battery saw, there's nothing bigger than 3 feet, but I really don't like having to cut from both sides to make a notch and a back cut. I know it can be done. I know how to do it. It's not any fun, and there's just more ways that, you can make an error. So I'd rather be able to use a gas saw, and I'd like to get my crap together and be able to take the camera up and do a couple of those videos. I was trying to think what saw I'd drag down from the attic that has a full wrap, because falling is easier with a full wrap. It is. I can do it with a half wrap, but again, full wrap, it's more fun. So we'll see. Hopefully we'll get to that. My next video is going to be a running 925 for Caleb. Got lucky and a mystery saw appeared on eBay just before I was heading out this last time around. Won the bid on that. It was a 955 that had been partially stripped. And I don't know why, because it had spark and it had compression. Fuel lines were rotten and one of the oil hoses was rotten, but the starter was gone, muffler was gone, a few other parts were gone. But again, the ignition system was good, which I needed one of those for something else I'm doing. And the piston and cylinder were good for Caleb's saw. So that's going to work out really well. It was funny. I got this together so quick. It was like, God, the crap has been on my bench for a month and a half now as I've tried to sort this mess out. And in one morning, I made a little mess disappear. So anyway, I do apologize for the lack of videos, but like I warned at the beginning of summer, that's kind of how it goes. So I'll be home for a few weekends, so I'll try to put out some good content. Again, I'll try to do some from the Firewood Hill. So I hope you all are enjoying your summer as well, whatever recreation you choose to do, and catch you on the next one.